Oh, and
Ross, can you do that whole intro over again? Because we weren't recording.
no worries.
I
My
know
name
people are still coming in. So let me
okay.
know if you did you get the record button?
You're recording.
Oh, I am recording. All
Yeah,
right.
I see it. It's good. So you want me to say it again?
Um let me know when Cisco's face pop up on the screen.
Okay, there's Cisco's handsome face. All right, I'll start again for you then.
All right.
My name is Rosalind Anderson. I'm the chair of Referee and Laws Committee, Referee Development. Thank you, Marquise, for organizing this series with our MLR referees. This is the second part of our three-part series. And originally it was going to be on foul play, but we switched that to next week for some really good reasons that you'll learn about next week. And tonight we're going to have the esteemed Cisco Lopez, who is a Major League Rugby AR and center referee and a World Rugby referee. And he's going to be talking to us tonight about space. And Cisco, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Yeah, sweet. Thanks, Roz. And thanks everybody for taking some time out of your weekday to talk about some touch judge stuff. So yeah, like first of all, I think I wanted to talk about space this week as well, because since I did a lot of work with the AR stuff in the sevens, both national and international. I think a lot of the AR principles around space and sevens translate really well over to 15s. And it's just a toolbox that I think it comes really natural to me. And I hope I can explain with some clarity today. For me today, we'll go over some of the basics, some sort of like fundamental principles. Most of it is going to be on slides and I'll be talking for a bit. Yeah, if you have questions, please put them in the chat. I'll try and speak slow enough that if there is any questions and I can answer them, that we can do that. And then we'll go over some clips at the very end where we can have a little bit more conversation. So first I'll just give you sort of what I think are the fundamentals, and then we can go into a little bit more of a conversation stuff. So Marquise, I just need you to stop sharing your screen. Never mind. I can go to mine. Oh, you're good. You're good. So sweet. Okay. The Touch Tuesdays is what I told this is called. So that's what we're doing. So right, on the weekend, the biggest impact that the team of three has on the game is speed, space, and safety, right? So these are the big three things that as a team of three, we're working together to try and get a really good, fair, flowing game of rugby. Today we're talking about space, but I think it's worth noting that these are other things that we're talking about as well. So where is space needed most in the game, right? We have set piece, last foot at the breakdown, and in front of kicker. So we'll go through all three of these and sort of some of the principles that I think are worthwhile to think about. Before talking about that though, of course, like with space calls, right? We're talking about this stuff in live play. So we do need to be really clear, concise, and calm with our communication with the referee. They're dealing with all the breakdown stuff, players yelling in their ear. So if we can be the calm ear, if we're using radios, if we can be the calm ear or the calm voice in their ear, they'll know that it's the voice of reason. It's the voice of trying to get them going in the right direction. And of course, normally we work with this protocol, right? Color, number, offense. So blue 12, offside, just like that, just as you're hearing me say it right now. A lot of the times those comms are really close into the referee's ear. So if you're yelling them over the mic, sometimes you can't hear anything, or it's just not clear what comes on through. I did want to add here, and we'll get into this later, that depending on the referee brief, you have a little bit of latitude over, right? So with a line break, with defense under pressure, you might say something like blue 12, never onside. And that's a conversation that we'll have when we get to the breakdown last foot, where the difference between never onside and shooters, right? So defensive players who leave the line early, whose responsibility those are, and who is more of an issue for us as AR specifically, right? We're talking about assistant refereeing space here. Another example for this would be in front of kicker. So, right, players can't advance when they're in front of the kick. So you would just go over the comms and say red 16 advancing. This, I just want to, I'm adding this just to show you that there's a lot of different choices that we have with communication, but it should always be in line with what the referee brief is. So if the referee is not telling you to say anything about advancing players, never telling you to say never onside, always wants you to say offside, work with the referee, be flexible. and help them out, right? We're there to support the referee. So that's our main role. So it's set piece. We talk a lot in the MLR group about AR etiquette. So just really setting your stall, getting really the simple things right. Like just if you have, right, 100 points that you can get through the day, and 50 of them are just standing where you need to be when you need to be there, AR etiquette falls under all that sort of stuff. So at set piece, you want to build rapport with players early. So here we're talking about scrums and lineouts. So getting the defensive players 10 meters from the line of touch or 5 meters from the last foot at the scrum. So you want to build rapport with the players early, talk to the wingers early, let them know that you're there, let them know that you're helping them to be on side, that they're, so that they can work with you. If there's defensive organizers, maybe the 13, maybe the 10, get their attention as well. So my biggest thing here would be where you need to be before they need you to be there. So get to that 10 meters from the line of touch, like jog there as quick as you can before the players get there, set yourself up right 5 meters from the last foot at the scrum quickly, communicate to the players by voice, by gesture. And for me, I always know that I'm connected with the players, that they're expecting me to be there. I know that I built good rapport when they're looking over to me before I even have to tell them something. So, right, the players are all there, standing, staring at the other direction, and then they just give a quick look. Oh, okay, sweet, I'll take one step back. So that's how you know you've built good rapport. If they're not doing that, you can do a couple things, whether it's getting in their line of sight, whether it's, hey, if you know their name, or hey, 14, that kind of thing. So for me, set piece, it's all about where we start. I think this is even a principle with refereeing, right? It's all about setting it up right. If we can get all the pieces in the puzzle where they need to be, or all the chess pieces where they need to be before they start, then anything that happens after that, the bad picture is clear, the good pictures are easy to work with. So for me, set piece is all about etiquette. And so I won't harp on too much longer about set piece. Breakdown last foot, however, is of course a much more dynamic, a much more fluid sort of a situation. So here, the way that we work with breakdown last foot with the ARs in MLR is we work with a very similar principle that the USA 7's pathway works with the ARs, right? Make an effort to get a good position for an accurate decision. So here we're talking about making sure that both ARs, both leading and trailing, are working hard to get in line with the last foot at the ruck, to make sure that if there's any player that's in either on their left or right, depending on how they're looking at the field, they can clearly tell the referee who's offside, who's never been onside, right? And so, right, so again, work to get in line with the last foot to decide and assess clear and obvious offside. So here, we'll just go over this clip. This isn't, I'll just pause it real quick. This isn't the best clip. We'll go through some better ones later. No, sorry, we'll go back and then we'll go back forward.
They've got to get this ball down. Rugby ATL setting up a good defense.
So here you can see these players are offside. Referee AR is on the comms. Lashy plays the advantage. And the big thing for me too here is watch that the AR in that clip, the AR continues to do his responsibility. He's still moving to the last foot. He's still trying to be ball in line, even as and after he's communicated with the referee. This is what we mean when we say that this is a fluid and dynamic process, right? Like this is where play is going on, and right, you want to get the right call, but you also want to be sure to be there for the next thing that's happening. So that was a really good process there of the player was offside, Black 14 was offside. You saw Sadie on the sideline go to his comms. Lashley played the advantage, and they probably went back for it. My biggest thing here, though, again, it's fluid, dynamic, and we want to be smart with our communication. Under law, offside players are liable for penalty. This is different from a lot of other law situations where the referee must penalize the offender. So here, and this is something that I really want to emphasize as one of the biggest opportunities for learning and growth as an AR that can translate over into refereeing. You want to get to that last foot and then observe, decide, and then act. So if that offside player has no effect on play, there's no need to communicate that to the referee during live play. Downtime is a great opportunity to let them know about those players and get clarity on what they as the referee want in those situations, or what situations they would want AR intervention in. When I say that observe, decide, act is something that we can translate over into our refereeing, I feel like this is the biggest thing. This is a principle that Chris Pollock, who's one of the MLR coaches, talks even with the MLR referees about stuff that we have growth to do still as well in the group, of arriving to the breakdown, observing what's happening, deciding what we want to do, and then acting. So not overreacting to something, not over anticipating, but letting the game happen and then acting with what the game needs. So in this example that I'm thinking of, an offside has no effect on play would be, for example, the winger starts offside, but it's just a crash ball off the forward pod, right? And that's something to just know, like, oh, okay, this winger's creeping up. You can talk to them at like either a player down or scrum line out, some downtime where the referee can be able to process that information. Then you can let them know about that. So here's, I guess I was going to do maybe more like a question thing, but there's a lot of people, so we'll just do rhetorical. So with breakdown last foot, you want to understand the situation that the game is presenting you with, right? So where do you guys think offside players have the greatest, the clearest, and most obvious effect on play, on continuity, on attack? Line breaks, right? Because this is where the players need to retire all the way to the last foot, turn and burn, and try and put pressure all before the ball gets recycled. Well, one of the big things here, and we'll transition to talking about role clarity in a second, is if in line break situations, the referee is very ball focused because there's a lot of momentum and there's a lot of pressure on the contest in that moment. And so as ARs, if we can take the load off of what the referee, of all the things that the referee needs to take into account in the line break situation, if we can get the offside line, then they can watch the tackle ruck, make sure everything's legal there, and then we can let them know, okay, never onside, green 16, right? So this is something where if there's a line break, even if it's small, right, even if it's only a couple meters long, that's still 5 more meters that the defense has to come back, turn around, and go forward, versus if they're always pressing, getting that defensive dominance, right? This is also another place I think where we can learn to read the game as ARs, and in a sort of like not super high pressure situation that can translate really well over into when we're refereeing, when we're in the middle. So now last section is in front of kicker, right? So again, we have role clarity is the big thing with in front of kicker. This is probably the most dynamic situation about space that we have. It's one that we're really clamping down on nowadays, like you can see across all competitions in the world. And so in law, players must not advance. Players in front of the kicker must not advance unless offside under the 10-meter law, right? Those players actually have to leave outside of that 10 meters from where the ball is going to land. One thing that I wanted to say quickly about this, though, just this caveat, is the referee's responsibility, their role in that situation with the 10-meter law, they're going to tell those players to retire, right? Because you're all the way at touch. So that's not your responsibility. Make sure that you're watching everything that the referee's not watching, right? And the way that I think about that is that, right, space is a responsibility for all of us as a team of 3, but we have to work separately in order to succeed together, in order to maintain a good level of space together, right? The 2 sort of main situations that we see in front of kicker, where there are 2 very distinct roles that the referee and the AR have, is of course the territorial tennis kicking, the back and forth between the backfield back players trying to just gain those 5 and 10 meters of space. So the referee is always going to have those players in field that are closer, right, to the middle of the pitch, closer to the sticks, and then the retiring forward, right? So he's going to tell them stop, get back, etc. And then as assistant referees, we're going to have our responsibility is from touch towards 15 meters in field. So those kick chasers that are because usually that duel happens inside the tram lines, right? So if we can make sure that those players are making sure that they're behind the kicker, or we're communicating to them, then that's the best thing. At box kicks, and this is something that hopefully I can find some clips to explain this really well, because this is something that we get wrong a lot with MLR, that I think is a really good way of, because box kicks have become such a great way to gain momentum and territory in the game. At box kicks, right? So kicks off the base of the ruck from the 9, right? They do their little caterpillar and we tell them use it. In those situations, the referee is going to stay, or this is what we talk about with MLR. The referee is going to stay at the offensive last foot. So in line with the ball, in line with the kicking scrum half. They're going to make sure that whoever is chasing, either the winger or whoever else, that their timing is good and that they're starting from a good place. The ARs are going to stay in their usual place at the last foot of the breakdown to make sure that the charge down is legal, to make sure that all that stuff going on in front of the ball that the referee is now focused on is all legal, making sure, nobody's pushing anybody, other silly stuff like that, right? And so we'll go over some clips right now before I go to the last slide. I just wanted to keep this nice and short. In the meantime, does anybody have any questions about anything? Did I roll through this a little too quickly? Just let me know. If you have any questions, put them in the chat or raise your hand. I think Roz can choose out people. Okay, we'll go over some clips. I'm sharing sound. Look at this. He's rolling through it like he's actually taught online through the semester, which I've not had to share sound through the semester. So let's see. So one of the first ones, so this is a good example, right? The ARs here, you guys can see my cursor. The ARs here are in line with the last foot. As play moves back, you see Austin tries to stay ball in line. Here, he's working hard to keep up with play. It gets stripped. So, right, but he's where he would have needed to be if that tackle occurred. Yeah, sorry, I was watching where Tim was, and Tim's in a great position here. This is not what we're talking about, but Tim's in a great position to watch for what's going on here. This isn't what we're looking for either. We had a lot of mall issues last week, so we had a lot of clips talking about malls. Ruck offside here. Here's a good one. I'll turn the sound on.
Few carries. They are a very dangerous team when they carry.
So you can see at the top of the screen, or I guess Danny just got Mike Wazowski'd out of frame here. He's right here. He was in line with the last foot. Right, all happy with everything there. Oh, this is Gavin.
Rolls and get some help from his
Gavin
teammates.
Keeps coming back. So that's perfect movement right from the AR.
There is the big
right up here. Here, obviously, this near side AR, he should be watching this 8 and this 1 clearly in front of the last foot, right? So I think those are some good examples. I don't think we have a lot of box kicks examples. Let me see if there were any from the New England game. Yeah, here we go. Oh, great. Yeah, and Jack did a good job here. So here exactly. So AR is here in line with the last foot, and watch how Jack's just going to stay on the ball.
South Africa.
Jack is watching this player up here, making sure that his timing is good. And the AR is watching this player, Hassan, making sure that his timing is good, right? So again, we have to work together to make sure that space gets maintained successfully. Yeah, see? And so in that clip, you could hear at the very end, hopefully, Jack saying 12, no, you're off. And we penalize that player for in front of kicker. Cool. So some final thoughts. So I hope those are some good examples. Again, if there are any questions, certainly we can answer them in a second. The final thoughts that I have thinking about space and what we can contribute as assistant referees is that space is essential, but so is not overreacting or chasing decisions. And so with that, we should stick with the clear and obvious, right? If the player is clearly and obviously in front of the kicker, then we come in over the comms, Jack, 12 red, offside in front of kicker, right? If it's something that our position as assistant referees doesn't give us the best credibility, then there's no sense in chasing a decision and giving a penalty which did not occur, right? That's the worst thing that we can do as a team of 3 on the field. Other things is to maintain communication with the referee during downtime if space is a trending issue. Like luckily for us with MLR, we have those 20-minute breaks for hydration. That really helps us to figure out how the game's going, how pictures are looking, etc. Yes, Marquise, I see your hand is raised.
Oh, give me a second. Marquise came back in, so now I have to unmute him.
Okay, cool.
He came in as his own self or something. Got it. Did that work? Did I do it? Marquise?
Marquise?
I can't make it work. 1 second. Sorry, friends. Yeah.
All right.
I tried. There you are.
Got him.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Ross.
there you go. But I did that. Go ahead.
All right. My question, you mentioned something, chasing it. I just want you to clarify what that looks like from a AR referee's perspective on we see something, we call it in, but the referees just kind of waved it off. Do we continue to say, hey, but he was offsides, or do we just do like Frozen and say it and let it go?
Yeah, well, I think so. What I guess also to be clear, what I mean when I say chasing decisions, it would be, for example, like exactly like the winger 14 comes up early or is never onside. That's not affecting play, but then we go in and say, oh, but he's offside, right? Clearly that player hasn't affected the game. And so chasing the decision would be sort of like not being connected with what the game needs. Like that's not where the attack is going, and that hasn't affected how the attack has decided to move forward. And so that would be chasing a decision. I do think that if it sounds like the referee, or it feels as if the referee hasn't heard you correctly, you absolutely should repeat yourself until they either say, no, we'll play on, I'm happy. And that's, again, like hopefully a conversation that the referee has with you before. That's also something that you, as an assistant referee, are more than within your rights to ask the referee in pre-match, hey, do you want to wave us off, or do you want us to just say it a couple times, and if we hear nothing, basically we've been waved off? That kind of conversation about how the communication is going to go in the game, because every referee is different, is super essential. So for stuff like that, though, certainly, Marquise, like if I saw a player offside that I thought affected play, I would keep on going in until the referee said, like if this is what we agreed on, especially until the referee said, no, I'm happy, we're playing on. Because especially with space, the referee sometimes has a little bit more of, because what we're looking at when we're ARs is certainly we're looking at the last foot, but we're also looking ahead of play and behind play. So we're not connected with the teams and with what their strategies or their goals in terms of defense and attack are. And the referee being a little bit more connected with that will have that little bit more tact to give the game the decision that it needs. And so certainly I think it's touch and go for sure. I think if you have that communication with the referee beforehand, then it'll be really clear how to go about and how to know if you've been waved off. And I think as well, it's very worth noting, if you get waved off a couple times, like keep coming in. Don't think that the referee doesn't want your help at all. It's just, given the situation and things like that. So never feel, as an AR, it's almost our responsibility to not feel disempowered, right? Like we should always feel empowered to keep on adding and trying to add value to the game, right? And that kind of just covers as well this sort of last point that I was going to make of be flexible with how the referee wants your input. So, right, again, we're there to support the referee. They have a game plan. They're again a little bit more connected with the game. And so if they want you to communicate in a specific way, if they want to communicate to you in a specific way, be flexible with what they need and be a team player, right? And help them out. So yeah, those are all of my thoughts on assistant refereeing space. Again, if you have any questions, feel free. I'd love to chat about this a little bit more. I wanted to give just the basic sort of, my basic sort of overview of that stuff.
Any questions? You can raise your hand, wave. Great. Okay.
Yep.
So Ken Frayne, because he does have some newer refs, and he was hoping that you could speak a little bit more about leading and trailing. Absolutely, and we'll go back to some clips actually, because I think leading and trailing is really hard if you don't have those visuals. Because yeah, so let's see. So for example, here in this situation, right, if we assume that Austin is going to go as they look from where they're standing to the right, then Drew is this AR over here. As they move away from Drew's going to become the trailing AR. So what the trailing AR does is the trailing AR stays to watch these players separate
to make sure that they separate safely, that no one's having any afters. Basically, the trailing referee, the trailing AR is got everything that is behind the referee's back. So as play will move from, as Austin sees it, left to right, then Luke's going to be looking in this direction, in that sort of rightward direction, away from Drew. And so Drew's going to get everything behind him. On the other hand, the AR on the camera side, which we're seeing it from, as play is coming to them, and we'll play this clip, hopefully they'll do it after I say this, as the ball is coming towards that AR, they're going to stay a little bit ahead of play. They're looking for potential high contact. They're looking at everything ahead of the ball, right? And so leading and trailing is a little bit of a positional thing, but I think as well, it's again, the responsibility of the trailing AR is looking with everything that is behind the referee's back, and the leading AR is looking almost at the other angle of everything in front of the referee as play goes. So I'll play this and we'll see. Oh no, this is going to be reset. Never mind. Let's look at some obstruction. So this will probably get some good
some early clarity,
good movement.
Some damage there. This is a massive opportunity. 10 meters out.
So so now play's going to go from, again, as LA sees it, from right to left, and Tim is going to turn into the trailing AR. He's watching all these. He's going to stay right where he is. He's going to watch all these guys, making sure that no one's doing anything silly, and he's not going to move. He's not going to move further. He's not going to move his eyes further infield until he's happy with everything that they've done.
They hit Hammerschauss, then they go wide, and he drops it late. Good hard running off the outside. This is fantastic.
So the lead AR in this situation is now should already be in line with this last foot. He should have been marking the defensive 10 meters, come back to get ball in line, and then come forward, right, to get in line with this here.
Offloading in the midfield. Finally, Burton's brought down, and the whistle goes again. And another turnover.
Let's see if the AR clips actually have more, because I realized that was the referee learning this clip.
And the Giltinis dodge the bullet.
Or like, here would probably be a great example of leading and trailing, where
they couldn't quite get it in hand. Does it look good?
As this guy's running for this corner, this referee, and this would be more the positional sort of like frame, as this player's running in this direction, this AR wants to get in line with everything, because that's where all the action is going to be. If there's a tackle ruck, it's going to be in this area. He wants to be right on top of it. Whereas Austin just kind of hangs around, makes sure nobody pushes anybody, right? He's got everything that is behind the referee, right?
Still out attacking.
So again,
22 minutes to go.
Again, leading and trailing is both a positional as well as a sort of thing of responsibility. And here we can see that Tim has led very well. He's right on top of play as it comes down into the corner. Is that kind of clear? I know it's hard without like the picture perfect. Like, I wish that I could do a better job at like having animations that are really good, but I think it's also worthwhile to see with an open game, with a game that's actually happening, where the AR is, where they could be. Like maybe Tim, seeing that things were going pretty downhill, could have gotten on the horse a little bit sooner, just in case, like, right, if the tackle gets made earlier and then there's another phase, he's going to want to be trailing as play goes back towards the camera. And then he's just watching the players that have come together and as they come apart, right? So again, leading and trailing, and that's a great question, Ken, because I feel like this is something that is a very easy thing for us to just use as phrases with forgetting that, like, you have to learn them and you have to learn, hey, you're trailing, so this is your responsibility. Like, it comes with more than just where you're supposed to stand, but what responsibility you have, what you're looking at. So yeah.
Okay, did that answer your question? Did you want to ask something else? Unmute yourself and say more? Were you good?
That was a great explanation, Cisco. That's exactly what I was looking for, because I'm going to be using this for training for RARs.
Perfect.
Could you also explain positioning at the scrum? Where do where the center referee is looking to have the closer referee or the opposite side referee or AR from the, where should they stand? What are responsibilities? Looking at the, the blind side, things like that.
100%. Yeah. And I think this is a great question, because I think it still goes back to communicating with the referee, right? So if the referee's done their homework with the game, right, then they might know, hey, this back line likes to come up really early, so let's get both assistant referees on the defensive line. Maybe they'll say, hey, I need a lot of help at scrum time today. So if it's inside the 15 from touch, you get the side closest to touch, the blind side, and I'll get the open side. And then you let me know if you've seen anything. And then we can talk about at downtime what the picture is and stuff like that. So I think it's very situational. It's very what the game needs, what assistance the referee needs. I'd say that typically you need at least one assistant referee on the defensive line at scrum time. And so then the question is, with that blind side, with the near side assistant referee, whether they're as also on the defensive line or if they're helping at scrum time. So there's really only one interchange there, right? And if it's in midfield, then probably both go defensive because there's not much help that you would have. There's no input that I have if the scrum's like all the way midfield, like I'm not going to be able to see. I'm not that good enough yet, right? So that's a great question as well, Ken. And again, like just to really emphasize, this is all about communication, staying connected as a team, staying connected to what the game needs, right? Ken, do you have another question?
Hold on a second. Someone raised a hand. I got to figure that one out. Okay. Oh, yeah. Ken did. Hold on a second. Go ahead, Ken. Can you do it?
Yeah, now I can unmute myself. Okay. Hey, just a follow-up question about Cisco. What are the typical things for a close side AR? You said like 15 meters in on the blind side. What are the things that the center referee is asking their AR to look at?
Yeah, I mean, again, it's going to be really situational. So, for example, if maybe early on, it could just be, hey, stand there, watch what's happening. Tell me if between the two, who looks more dominant, if somebody's leaning, if the loose head's kicking their hips out early, if the tight head's just going into the hole. Tell me what you're seeing, so that then if the referee have to go onto that side later on in the game, they already have an idea of what the picture could look like, and that helps them referee the scrum a little bit more fairly. So things like that. I think another thing too that I look out for, because it happens sometimes in some scrappier games, is if you're the near side AR, the referee's not there, the scrum collapses on your side. Oftentimes the flankers will get involved with the front rows, either pushing into one of the other front rows, pushing into one another. That's a really easy flashpoint, because the scrum's already collapsed. You can tell guys are frustrated. Now they're doing some other stuff. So being able to see stuff like that that's happening off the ball and being able to give information to the referee there. So stuff like that. I mean, again, it really depends on what the game's looking like. Usually if that side of the scrum's going down consistently, and that's like the big issue side, the referee will more often than not just own that side every time, even if positionally it makes more sense for them to take the other side, because their first responsibility is going to be, I mean, first of all, telling the players before even crouch, hey, I need to see XYZ from you, but then also being able to see, engage all the way through, and then make a decision if it does go down, but hopefully preventing any of that happening. That's the best, right? That's the best way for us to help the scrum stay up. Just stand on the side where they're going crazy, and then just let them know, like, hey, I'm here. And almost shootout style, you decide. Pete, I see that you have a good question in the chat as well. Pete Chamberlain, SIRS represent. He asks, in what situations should ARs call in ruck infractions, or does the ref just have to own that? This is a really good question. I think it's a really hard question too, because I think more often than not, the referee will own those decisions. So for example, I think a classic one that we see when we're assistant referees that we want to call into the ref is probably like side entries. So side entries coming in from like the touch line, because we see the number on the back and it's ringing alarm bells for us. But again, I think those are things where the referee will oftentimes be more connected to the breakdown there. And we might overreact or chase decisions in that situation. I have been the AR to call in a ruck infraction in terms of, or I guess I'm thinking maybe like tackle ruck. So something like side entry would be much more like on the referee. A good thing that you're actually reminding, or I'm being reminded of right now, Pete, by your question, is a big focus item that we have as AARs and MLR, which is looking at neck grabs and taking players beyond the ball at the ruck. And that falls more in line with foul play responsibilities, which is, I mean, I know we'll talk about it next week, but we can kind of preview coming attractions here, where at tackle ruck, again, we have to work separately to succeed together. The referee's watching the ball in the contest. And so as the assistant referee, should you be watching the ball in the contest? No, because there's already a set of eyes there, right? So you should be looking about a couple of inches in your eyes, a couple of inches above the contest, making sure what's going on with any heads, if anybody's grabbing anybody, if anybody's pushing anything, because that's all the stuff that the referee just cannot see from where they're standing, right? Or it's really hard to get those decisions as a referee, especially if they happen bang, bang, like a really quick ruck that then comes back. The referee's probably just like trying to both not get in the way and then get to the next breakdown. So those are situations, again, those fall more in line of foul play. So that's, of course, where we as assistant referees do have a responsibility to add value to the refereeing. But I think in terms of tackle ruck contest infractions, more often than not, again, probably not, unless it's one of those where like the ref's looking, he goes to scan offsides, and then it just blows up absolutely as soon as they look away, where it's clear and obvious that the referee hasn't seen it. Then, I mean, yeah, you have to be a team player in that situation. And hopefully the referee trusts you and backs you on that call. And again, those are things too, that if you feel like that's a situation that might occur, again, talk to the referee about it either before the game, at halftime, if that sort of situation happens and you sort of deer in headlights it, just be like, hey, do you want me to come in on something like that? So for sure.
Cool. Did that answer it? Oh yeah, you got it. Good.
Ken asks another question about positioning and roles at a try. This is another good question. It's funny because, yeah, when you talk about space, because you talk about position, you just get into a big conversation about positioning as well, which is very fair. We can look at, again, this clip here with Tim, where he's standing, and we can sort of like back up a little bit. Where he's standing, especially with how downhill this whole situation has been, is probably as good as he's going to be able to get. So here at the try, we want to try and get the other side, right, that the referee is getting. So we want to triangulate in a situation that's not totally possible. Here, I really stand by this idea of where Tim's standing. He's standing off the line, but in line with the goal line, or just about in line with the goal line. He's able to see everything that's going on, but he also has perspective, right? If Tim were standing on top of the corner flag, he probably actually wouldn't be able to see anything. The way that I think about it is, it's like, imagine if you were trying to look at this on the screen of an iPhone, which is what you would get if you were standing here, versus a big screen TV when you take those 2 steps back here. Then you see everything else, and you're able to then give better information to the referee here. Let me see. Yeah, here's a good example of triangulating with the referee, or actually, so when we say triangulating with the referee, we mean if they're coming in from infield, the AR goes into in goal and gets the reverse side, right, of what the referee has. Here's a really good clip of Dave Edwards. Again, Sirs represents. Here's a really good clip of Dave Edwards getting into in goal once this maul gets momentum and is threatening to go over the line. So here, he's staying where he's supposed to be, in line with the last foot, making sure whatever side entries or neck contact stuff is all legal. And then as it starts gaining momentum, he gets into in goal to see, this is first of all to get another perspective from what Jack could get, but then also he's here to make sure that any of the contest from the Rugby ATL players is legal, that nobody's collapsing them all as it has momentum going over the line, because we all know that that's a very serious infringement, probably a penalty try, yellow card if it were like collapsing a potential try scoring maul, right? So this is a good example of triangulation, where when triangulation just means getting these 2 different perspectives, these almost opposite perspectives of the ball. And so So there's basically, those are my two big things for at try scoring situations. If you can get in goal, honestly, that's the best. But if you can't get there in time, honestly, do not risk being in no man's land, and always take a step off of the touchline. Always give yourself perspective to be able to see everything you need to see, because it's going to happen and you want to be able to have the picture, like you want to be able to just like close your eyes and see like the picture that the photographer would have taken, right? Is essentially what you want. Or I think about it a lot, like when we're watching these international games that have like amazing production, like the Six Nations, they have like 60,000 cameras everywhere. Trying to be in that camera spot, that's going to have that the TMO essentially would need, right? So being where you need to be before you need to be there. If you can read the play like that, that is amazing. But I would also say, don't chase it and find yourself in no man's land. So that's another good question though, Ken. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Luann Campbell explains it perfectly. AR needs to see ball carrier, defender, tackler, touchline, feet, too close, and you can't see it all. So, and then Gary Crumley also adds, to get the better view, go 5 in to the infield if needed. Yeah, exactly.
Cool.
Great job, Cisco.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mikey.
Yeah, Cisco, thank you so much. That was great information. Thanks for answering all our questions. Appreciate your time and your expertise. So folks, thank you all, people who showed up. Thank you for being here. Really appreciate your presence. Glad to see you. And we'll send out the recording of it later. And I also want to remind you that next week now, Amelia Luciano, who is an MLR, AR, and television match official, will be speaking to us about foul play, and she will have some very interesting clips for us about that. She is, as a TMO, very much in the midst of that. So hope
international referee as well, Rosalind. You got to throw her whole resume out there.
Internationally capped.
Internationally capped woman of the century.
Yes. Good correction. My bad. But I promise to say it right next week.
Got to put some respect on that name.
Yeah, right? So it is going to be a treat. So we're really grateful. Grateful for your time tonight, Cisco. Looking forward to seeing you all next week with Amelia. And this is from your Referee and Laws Committee Referee Development Working Group. Glad we could provide some good content for y'all. And any comments? Everyone's willing to, free to email me. Talk to y'all later. Any other final words from you, Cisco?
No, I mean, I think or Mark. I know Mark had his hand up. So Mark, go ahead.
Mark.
And go.
Yeah. Sorry, I missed it.
So people were asking where the recordings will live.
Oh, I am actually putting them in the referee workbook, the referee levels workbook. Going to keep them on I'm making a whole tab in that, which I will send out to the RDOs and the RDO group. So hopefully you'll get it through them. I will also send that link to everyone who registered for these meetings. If you don't know what the referee levels workbook is, there's a link in it that explains it. And USA Rugby, just so people know, they're working to get us our own referee resources page where we can let a lot of this stuff live in a way that's easier to find right on the USA Rugby website. But that might take some time, so we're doing it ourselves for a while. Does that answer the question well enough? Mark Nelson? Okay, cool. Awesome. Love it. Final words? Nope, we're good.
No, I mean, I think again, just work. Remember that you're there to support the referee. So be flexible with what the referee needs. Really, and I think there's again another question of what hand signal communications you can do if comms are down. Again, like that's something that, right, like one signal could mean something to one ref versus another. So that's something where having clarity with their expectations, their needs is always going to be really, really important. So I think for me, that's the biggest thing with space. It's super dynamic. So the more that you can prepare how the referee needs your help before the game, the better position you put yourself in as a team of three, again, to uphold one of those three pillars that we started the presentation with: safety, speed, and space, right? So if we can get all three of those, as well as the clear and obvious, like no one can complain, right? So, but we have to make sure then to get all three of them and the clear and obvious.
Love it. Cool. All right. Then with that, we'll say goodnight to everybody and see you next week. Thank you. See you later. Oh, I love seeing your happy faces. Oh, my friends. Cool.